Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
He texted me the other day. Pat P's a great person, a great player in this league for a long time. I was in his division, and that was always a tough day going against him. So we're trying to work again. We're trying to be solutions oriented about everything we do here. You want to make sure that you respect a player of his caliber, his expertise in this league, but also the reality of the situation we're in from a salary cap standpoint. So again, those conversations are ongoing. We're trying to work through those problems as we can.
That's right. Solution. I'm all about being solution focused too. Sometimes I think Judd is problem focused. Like, he's really good at pointing out what's wrong with the teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I work from problem to solution, but you got to know what your problems are first. It's a reality that most in this world don't want to have to examine. I enjoy the examination of your problems.
Yeah, Judd is going to open up a sports consulting firm here sometime this summer. Things slow down. A little side hustle. So this is Purple Daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. It's really not that complicated after 60 years. That's the only goal at this point. And the show is presented by Surly Brewing Company and TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. You guys want to get nerdy here?
Yes.
You guys want to do a deep dive into the
NFL
NFL draft?
It's football.
I want a mock.
Let's bring in our guy here from NBC Sports Edge, Thor Nystrom, to shed some knowledge. What's going on, Thor?
How you doing, guys?
What's up?
Well, we're sitting here trying to figure out what a competitive rebuild is, as Kwesi characterized it yesterday. No, it seems like an oxymoron, but whatever. I'm here. I think Kwesi's a smart guy, so I don't know.
He's a very smart guy. He's trying to straddle both lines rhetorically. I thought that was very impressive.
It was, because it takes a lot of work, Thor. Like, you got to be really on point to be talking about the present and future simultaneously and trying to sell both of them as viable products. So
I don't know if he's going to win a Super Bowl, but I'm ready to give him a debate championship for sure.
Hell yeah. Yes, for sure. So, all right, let's dive in for like 15 minutes here. The Vikings have the number 12 overall pick, second round. I think right now they still have room. We haven't seen the details of the ZA'DARIUS Smith contract yet, but with the Danielle Hunter restructure, or I guess shifting the roster bonus to a signing bonus, and then accounting for, let's say, $5 million in Adam Thielen savings, they're looking to have around $20 million in cap space before the ZA'DARIUS Smith contract details come in. So they probably still have room to fill a need or two on the roster in free agency. Otherwise, it's draft. So cornerback is a need. Linebacker depth is a need. Interior offensive line. Long-term quarterback. But I think I would be shocked if they drafted a quarterback in the first round. So as you look at this roster puzzle right now and what might be available to the Vikings in the draft, where do you start, Thor?
Cornerback for sure. For me, if you're looking at the 12 slot right now, that has to be the leading contender for where you're going to go. Right now in my draft that's going to drop later today on NBC Sports Edge, I'm giving them Trent McDuffie. I think that's probably the best fit. Assuming Sauce Gardner doesn't fall to the Vikings in the first round, I think he's probably the leader in the clubhouse to go number 12. So that's where I have him going right now. In the second round at the 46 slot, I think if they go corner in the first round, I think probably edge defender would probably be the leader for that spot. I have them looking at Nick Bonito right now. Obviously, the Vikings are switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4. I think he would be a fabulous fit right there. They did get ZA'DARIUS Smith, so maybe that would be a lesser need right now, but I think it still is somewhat of a need area. And then the other ones, interior offensive line is still an enormous need. We've talked about this. Guard, you absolutely need one starter at guard. You might still need a one at center as well. At least some insurance there for Bradbury. So those would be some ones that initially I would look at. You need a third receiver as well.
All right, so at quarterback, I agreed completely with what you just said until Kwesi spoke yesterday, and I sort of dismissed the themes because I don't know, like the themes are the talking points, right? But sometimes in a press conference like that, you say something that I can read between the lines and you're telling the truth completely. And it's this one. He mentioned the fact that Donatello's 3-4 scheme is going to, it basically takes pressure off the corners. And makes their life easier, because with Mike, there was no question, Thor, that the pressure was on the corners, and it was a huge job there. Do you think that there's a chance that he is basically saying, we're going to sign some corners, we might draft one, but we wouldn't do it in the first round? And let me throw a crazy thought. Could there be a chance that they trade back in the first round and address center there? Because I'm with you. I think Garrett Bradbury is a bust. Like, he's not good. So I don't think when O'Connell at the combine talked about, we like, Garrett Bradbury, blah, 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 I think he's just blowing smoke. But do you think the corner thing is a viable thought?
I don't see any way that you could like Garrett Bradbury. So I agree. I think they're blowing smoke on that. As far as the cornerback thing, I do think that it's a viable idea to trade back. However, I don't think it's a viable idea to simply ignore it and leave the depth chart where it is right now. Because the cornerbacks are so bad. And as Vikings fans, we've seen over the years when the Vikings decide to sort of shirk that spot on the roster, what it becomes. We don't want to go up against Aaron Rodgers twice a year and have the cornerback position what it is right now. A guy like Trent McDuffie, though, I think, sort of what you have to look at it with shades of gray. And I think what they're talking about with Donatell's system is you don't need the prototypical all-pro type cornerback to run that system. You can have a cornerback who has some limitations that other teams are going to look over because of that. Trent McDuffie is a guy that fits that sort of paradigm for me, where you see some of these teams are nitpicking him because he has lack of length or some of those other different things where he's going to fall a little bit because of that. But this is a guy who was McDuffie Island the last 3 years in the Pac-12 and shut out people's lights because of it.
McDuffie Island. Let's hit him with the football sounder. I love that, dude.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that his arms are under 30 inches or some of these different things. He's just a really pesky defender. Like I said, he fits Donatell's system. And if you think that you can get him below 12, and there's a decent chance because of some of these limitations, with his size, his build, some of that he will be, I do think that you can trade down. And by the way, you guys, we've all talked about the restrictions that Kirk Cousins' contract puts on your cap. Because of that, you need to get creative with some of this stuff because you don't have the ammo with the salary cap space to fill some of these spots. One of the things that you can do, one of the only other things that you can do to fill those spots is trade down in the draft, get extra equity. So I would absolutely advocate for that, especially if you could still trade down and get a guy like Trent McDuffie.
So speaking of trading back and getting extra equity, so let's just looking back at the Rick Spielman drafts from the last couple of years. I mean, the Vikings have, you want to talk about competitive rebuild. In a win-now window, they've also drafted more players than any team in the NFL the last 3 years. They've drafted like 38 players or something. So, and you've covered these drafts going back, the last few years. So, because I think the place you start here in part is, are there players that were drafted in 2021 and even going back to 2020? Some of those guys have come through. Like we kind of know what Cam Dantzler is, and we know what Ezra Cleveland is. DJ Wonnum, but 2021. Who in that draft that was put in the Mike Zimmer doghouse do you still look at and say, okay, that player could actually be serviceable? You might as well count him as a draft pick, like Chaz Surratt, Wyatt Davis, Patrick Jones. I think Cam Bynum's going to start at this point opposite Harrison Smith. But what do you think of the draft class from a year ago that's collecting dust at this point?
Yeah, I mean, Surratt was a guy that I didn't love that pick, but certainly he's a guy that you still have to give an opportunity to because of the athleticism, right? And he was a guy who he had only played linebacker in college for 2 years, so you knew he was going to take some runway until he became what he was supposed to become in the NFL anyway. So he wasn't going to be what he was supposed to become in a year anyway. So the jury's still out on him. I would give him a little bit more time, even though, like I said, I wasn't a fan of his anyway. Wyatt Davis, he needs a little bit more time as well. It wasn't gonna be a thing where right away he was gonna be a plug and play starter. So some of those guys, I would give him a little more. Keenan Wangu, it's the same exact thing. He was stuck behind David Montgomery the whole time. The only reason he got drafted was because he went out and posted that 98th percentile athletic score or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a guy where we'll see if they ran into something there or not. If they just sort of ran into a pitch or not. But a lot of these guys, they're guys where another one, Zach Davidson, like a lot of these guys, they just sort of rolled the dice. So we'll see if they ended up turning into anything. But I didn't love a lot of those picks in the last draft. Kellen Mond, I think the jury's in probably on that one. But
you're done. You're done. You're done with Kellen Mond. It's over.
I'm done with Kellen. I was done with Kellen Mond when they picked him.
Wow.
Because the thing is with Kellen Mond, he's a developmental guy that you saw in the highest level of college football for 4 different years, and he never jumped up, right? He was as good as he was as a fourth-year senior as he was as a freshman. The game never went up, and he was surrounded by great players all 4 years. He had a great offensive line. He had a great coach his last year, Jimbo Fisher, who developed the number 1 overall player at Florida State, Jameis Winston. He had everything around him that you could possibly need, and his game never went up. He's a dual threat player with an arm who didn't throw down the field at Texas A&M and who never used his legs. He didn't have utility with his legs. What are we looking for here?
I love it. So
like going to jump up.
So when Mike Zimmer got up to the podium, was it after that Packers game? And Kellen Mond came in for like 3.5 minutes and just looked lost. But Mike Zimmer threw him under the bus at the press conference, and the reaction from 95% of people was, well, that's mean. Well, give him a chance. And Thor was sitting there with a tall boy in hand, just nodding and agreeing with Mike Zimmer the whole time. Yeah, this guy's a clown.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Mike Zimmer's a dick, and I definitely think that he deserved to be fired. But at least in that moment, it was like he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? And probably he was not behind the decision to draft Kellen Mond. I'm sure he was in the draft room being like, guys, I do not want this pick. So what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to go back to interior O-line. Tell me about a guy who I guess had a great pro day yesterday, I believe, Nebraska center Cam Jurgens. Where could you get him, and could he be a plug-and-play guy at that position?
Beef Jurgen. Shout out to Rich Eisen. Yeah, he's a guy that for sure the Vikings are going to be looking at if he gets into, I would say, well, he's going up right now.
Right.
If he can get into maybe, mid-day 3, I mean, he might be above that now where it's like early day 3. So he might get outside of the where the Vikings would be looking. But if he can get to like round 5, I think that's where the Vikings could start looking, because I don't think that they're going to take a pure center above that because of the we believe in Garrett Bradbury thing. But in the 5th round, I think that's where they could pull the trigger on a center. And a guy like Jurgens, he totally fits what the Vikings are looking for. As you guys know, it's a pure zone sort of a thing. And he's a guy who can compete with Bradbury on the exact same plane, strength for strength. And I think he's a guy who could come in right away and give Bradbury a run for his money for the starting center position.
So this is the interior offensive line is so interesting to me. I mean, center, especially with Kirk Cousins, he's not mobile enough to get away from interior pressure. And I think from a leadership standpoint, I think he could just really benefit from having an equal partner. Like, I keep going back to J.C. Treader. I mean, if you're going to make all these moves to win now in 2022, I think you just cross your fingers on his leg problems and go forward. But as you look ahead to how they can fix the interior offensive line, center and guard long term, I understand that an analytics-minded front office that has trading and Wall Street background isn't going to want to pump $15 million a year into a right guard. But we sit here, having watched the carousel of guards throughout the last 6 seasons, basically, going back even 10 seasons to when Steve Hutchinson retired, and they can't find a solution. So we sit here and say, okay, just spend money to fix it in free agency and be done with it. But Kwesi probably looks at it and says, all right, we got to be careful with where we allocate salary cap space. We can't pay running backs big money going forward. We can't, the linebackers, we got to be careful. And I would assume that he's going to be careful not pumping $30 million into guards. But the Vikings have been unable to find and draft and develop guards. So do you think it's been more of an issue of they've just selected the wrong players, or do you think they've had a development and coaching issue with interior offensive line?
Well, it's both of that, but it's also Kirk Cousins, right? Like if you had gotten rid of Kirk Cousins this offseason, then you could have, for instance, signed Brandon Scherf. Like if you're going to get a rookie, if you're going to get a quarterback on a rookie deal, the salary cap is not a myth. And if you give $40 million to your quarterback, you can't give $15 million to a guard, right? It's just you have to allocate, and do that sort of the thing. I would have loved to have Brandon Scherf, but once you made the decision to sign Kirk Cousins, that was no longer on the board. At that point, you have to do correctly. When you pick a first round center, you have to hit. And when you miss on a Garrett Bradbury, you don't have the money. When you have a Kirk Cousins, you don't have the money to solder over that. This is not baseball, and we are not the New York Yankees. When you make a $20 million, $30 million mistake, you can't just wipe over it, right? So that's sort of the issue for the Vikings here. Now they're going to have to hit in the draft. Hopefully Wyatt Davis pans out. And if that doesn't happen, they're going to need to hit on a couple guys here late. Cam Jurgens is an example of this. Hopefully with the guard, be it the third round, potentially. In my mock draft here, I didn't get to it. But in the third round, I have the Vikings taking Ed Ingram, who's an athletic guard from LSU. A guy like that, maybe you have him come in and compete with Wyatt Davis for that starting guard position. I'm happy that Dakota Dozier decided to follow Courtney Cronin to Chicago.
She's going to quit the Bears beat now.
Then she'll go somewhere else, and Dakota will follow her there as well.
Hey, I'm back.
Exactly. But between those two guys, hopefully you find a competent starting guard. You got to patch this together somehow.
Hey, how good, in your opinion now, after at least playing half of 2021, is Christian Darrisaw?
I think he's going to be pretty damn good. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's a guy who came on very late. Like, as you guys know, like coming out of high school, he was just like a low sort of 3-star recruit. He had to go to the, what do you call it? The military school for 1 year. And then after that, he goes to Virginia Tech. They didn't even know that they had anything. He started right away as a true freshman at left tackle and then just ascended. And so he came on just very, very quickly. I think he's going to get better and better and better. I don't know why he didn't play earlier for the Vikings, but he was pretty dang good once they put him in the lineup.
All right, Thor, we got to say goodbye here. Give us one last hot draft take for the road. Like, give us your hottest draft take off the top of your head for the road here.
Malik Willis is the best player in this draft.
There you go. Hell yeah.
Lions?
Let's get it.
At number
Lions.
2?
Lions
Do they
at
do
number
it?
2.
Think
Yep.
so?
Do they do it?
I think they pull the trigger.
Sneaky.
Oh, wow. Thor.
Sneaky. There
The
he
man
is, folks.
buried the lead.
Thor Nystrom,
Awesome.
NBC Sports Edge, and give people your social media handles and anywhere else they can find your work.
I'm at Thor KU on Twitter, and you can find my work at NBC Sports Edge.
Boom. All right.
Awesome,
We'll get
dude.
you on
Thank
again,
you.
man.
My
See ya,
friends,
Thor.
appreciate you.
Our
Thank you, Thor.
football-loving, draft-loving friend, Thor Nystrom from NBC
Whoa.
Sports Edge. That was 15 minutes of just injection of
Pure
football
adrenaline
right
football.
here,
But he
man.
just dropped the mic and walked off the stage with that last take.
Well, all
Malik
these
Willis is the best player in the draft is a statement.
I think it's absolutely fair to say that Malik Willis, considering his position and his traits, that's right, his traits,
Yeah, you go football.
that his upside is the highest upside of any player in the draft. But there's also
Sure.
like a much higher percentage of if he gets into the wrong hands, the wrong coach. Dan Campbell, I don't know if he's the best coach to develop a quarterback at a high level, but what did you make? I love where he's going with go get a cornerback in the first round, and if there are some center, I mean, John Sullivan was like a 5th-round pick, and he was a
fifth-round
franchise
pick.
center. So,
He
but
was.
I think a lot of people, including myself, are so skeptical at this point about this franchise. And again, it's a totally different coaching staff, different front office. So we gotta snap this line of thinking.
Right.
But we've seen so many late round offensive linemen come in, and they've got talent, and they just need to be molded, and then nothing.
All right, so I am at a place where if they take a corner in the first round, I 100% will not object. I mean, they definitely do need help there. So here's how I'm going to try and going forward, think about what they're doing. I'm going to try and think of it like they are. And I'm going to take the track that I think Kwesi and O'Connell are probably on, which is track 2, which is the development and trying to find pieces within their means. So, because like the veteran one, I really don't care about. Like, it's just not exciting. Like the whole thing of, well, we're going to keep this guy and keep that guy. I don't know if fans like guys, but I'm not excited by that. So the competitive part of the rebuild doesn't do much for me personally. The rebuild does. So if they go corner in the first round, if they go, heck, if you can get a good pass rushing end in the second round, and those guys are hard to find. If you can get a good one, you should jump. So if you're not filling needs directly right now, I almost don't care. I really almost don't care because I'm not invested in 22. I am invested in 23, 24, beyond. So if you do that, and then you have the ability and the scouting staff to identify, because you can get these guys. The Vikings just whiffed on interior offensive linemen from like, let's say the 3rd through 5th rounds, I'm fine. We are going to have some confidence that this group and this scouting staff, and I think it's going to change. What we'll probably see is some big changes after the draft, that they are going to have a better ability to find certain spots where the Spielman staff did not, right?
Dude, yes. Well,
but I'm on that path. I'm on the rebuild path. You can have your competitive path. I don't really care right now about that.
Well, let's I want to put a pin in a Rick Spielman draft debacle thought for a second here. So we're just gonna take that, put a pin in it right there.
Yeah.
Come back to it later.
A man that's been in too many meetings. We're just gonna take that offline.
We're gonna circle back to that.
Yeah,
thought.
we're gonna circle back. A man who clearly around 10 o'clock Pacific time in the morning starts meeting.
Very excited. My corporate life. The competitive rebuild thing. Mm-hmm. All right, I think it's funny because Kwesi criticized the people, us probably, who have painted this as a black and white thing, right? You're either all in or you're rebuilding, and more often than not, he said there's a shade of gray, and I try to operate on both sides of that fence because as a general manager, you do have to be looking out for 5 years down the road, 3 years down the road, and I totally agree and understand that. And I think very highly of him so far as a communicator, everything that people have written and said about him. I am high on Kwesi. I also think, all right, two things can be true. I am high on Kwesi. I think he's a potentially great general manager for the Vikings going forward. And I think competitive rebuild is an oxymoron. That if you are fully committed to winning a Super Bowl, like the Rams, for instance, people like to use the Rams as a Vikings example because, well, Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins and, the Sean McVay coaching tree connection. But what did the Rams do when they thought they were on the right track to win a Super Bowl? They started trading draft picks for established players. Then they would sign players and backload contracts, right? And so they're headed for salary cap hell at some point, but they don't care. They sold out to beef their team up to win a Super Bowl. So they traded like 6 years worth of first-round picks to get players in here. Bring it, and then they created a culture where, like, if Odell Beckham gets released by the Browns, the Rams are the place to be because they're all in. They're going for it. They're innovative offensively. So if you're trying to create that type of, if you're all in on winning a Super Bowl, which, again, they're not, and he said it yesterday that they're not. They're straddling the fence trying to do both. We're going to be competitive and kind of rebuild. But if you're all in to win a Super Bowl with Cousins and Thielen and Jefferson and all these guys, the veterans on your team, Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, then the conversation would be trading a first-round pick, the number 12 pick, for an established player this year, I think. So it sounds like they're not going to do that, which means that they aren't fully committed to winning a Super Bowl because they're trying to hoard resources for the future as part of the second part of this sentence or this, competitive rebuild. But if you were all in on rebuilding to the best of your ability as quickly and as effectively as possible, well, wouldn't you want more than just one first-round pick this year, one second-round pick, and then one first? Like, you'd want more than a first and a second and a first and a second next year. Ideally, you'd want 2 or 3 first-round picks, maybe 3 or 4 second-round picks. And the only way that you can get those things is by trading established players. So what they're doing is digging their heels into the middle ground, the median that they've been sitting in as a franchise for a long, long time. That's where it doesn't fully add up to me.
Because in the process of having what looks to be complete collaboration, you have people on this side of said fence and people on that side of said fence. And that's what they're going to, if you have true collaboration where everybody gets their say, you're never probably going to have consensus. I also think that so like Kwesi used lots of terms to sort of explain, because you're right, Phil. He said it's shades of gray. You guys are trying to say it's rebuild or not, and blah blah blah. But the reality is this too. So let's take his words and put them in the current era of which he is speaking. You've talked about for a long time, I think going back more to baseball, but about bandwidth, right? Mental, you only have in your brain, no matter how smart you might be, so much mental bandwidth. And it's my opinion that when you have a golden opportunity to, I won't say rebuild, I'll say reset, which these guys do right now. Like they were just brought in. It's a perfect time. Spielman last year, not perfect. Time to win. That's going to be tough. Time to win, Rick. I think that they are challenging themselves from a bandwidth place to try and juggle too much. And so the next logical question is, okay, what do you take off the plate? Like what goes? And to me, it's this, let's bring everybody back. Let's try and win. I would far prefer, if I was Kwesi's boss and O'Connell's boss, to put them in a position to say, I understand it's important to win, but the most important thing is to get this right. And the way to get this right is to allow you to focus solely on one goal. And that's where, like, shades of gray, I love that, and it's true in life, but sometimes things aren't as complicated as we humans can make them. And I think in this case, this is a very easy transition to, we need to put you all in on what's most important here. And that's where I think they're missing the grand point. And I don't know it's crazy, but I do think that there are people in that building that are missing the point, which is you've got a really good opportunity now to hit a reset, which could benefit you for years to come.
Yeah. I want to point something else out here too from really, this is kind of from Kwesi's background, but it's also, this started before he got to Cleveland. So Cleveland was just constant. Like Cleveland's kind of a bad example because they are one of the most incompetent franchises in NFL history for a 20-year period until they finally sort of figured it out like 3 years ago. Excuse me, with Andrew Berry and Kwesi and those guys. But the last iteration of their most recent rebuild sort of started in 2017 when they wound up with 3 first-round draft picks and a second-round draft pick. Now, they didn't hit on all these guys, but they had in 2017, they had 3 first-round draft picks and a second. And then in 2018, they had 2 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders. So they had all these extra first and second-round picks in 2017 and 2018. And with those picks, again, they didn't hit on all of these guys, but Baker Mayfield, who kind of train wrecked at the end, but like he's a huge part of the reason that they've had stability at quarterback, and he played well before the injury a couple of years ago. Like, is he a Pro Bowler? Like, no, but Baker Mayfield was better than almost all the quarterbacks the 15 years before that. Denzel Ward has been a star starting cornerback for them for a number of years. Nick Chubb, second-round pick, 2018. That was the extra second-round pick that they had. Myles Garrett, Jabril Peppers wound up going to the Giants a couple years later. David Njoku. Like, because they had accumulated extra picks beyond what all the other teams had, they were able to get Nick Chubb and they were able to get Denzel Ward and these other players to quicken their rebuild and become an 11-win team and then win a playoff game, etc. So if you're fully committed to rebuilding, then you want the extra first and second round picks. Well, I would suggest at this point you should trade your first round pick, trade your second round pick for a player that can help you now. Is there a guard or a center out there right now that's up for a contract in a year on a team that's going nowhere that you can trade for right now? Like I don't know if it's going to get you to a Super Bowl, but like you've gone this far. Keep pushing chips in. Go all in. Let's do it.
But the problem is they are trying to hedge their bets, which is the worst thing possible. So like the problem is they don't have the consensus to do what you just said. They also don't have the consensus to dump veteran players to go all in, like you just explained the Browns
to get draft picks.
Yeah. So like what's the literally in sports, somebody eventually has to make a decision, and we're seeing right now what happens if you say, we got to play nice, let's go with the consensus. The consensus is, I want to do this. Well, I want to do that. Well, how do we compromise? We'll both do something that we like.
Yeah.
Like this is people are going to get very upset and say, you guys, this is typical Purple Daily. This is why I am a KFAN stan, because you guys do nothing but complain about the Vikings. But what we are seeing in progress is a potentially slow train wreck. And that's what I don't like. And I will go back to this point. I think there's precedent here. And I think the precedent here, and it's a much different year, but if you remember 2009 into 2010, they literally were like, we're bringing guys back. We're going to bring everybody. Now, we thought that team was good. So we were ultimately wrong about that. but this feels like the same
I called
formula.
I actually called it on Royce.
Oh, you did?
That team was going to be a train wreck in 2010. One of my first correct, great predictions, and just want to throw it out there.
Find that one. Find that Mackey gem. But this feels like that in trying to run too much back. And I would argue, I think football is the worst sport to do that in. I think guys age out so quickly that, like basketball, hockey, baseball, it might hurt you a little bit. I think in football, it's a disastrous idea. Like if Eric Kendricks is as done as it's beginning to look, possibly from what can be proven from his 2021 performance, if he just goes completely off the cliff now, what have you gained?
Well, you might have missed an opportunity to get a second or third round pick or something, right? And ammo to trade up. And I'm not going as far as you are. Like I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong here, so save it for old tweets exposed on Mackey and Judd decks. I don't think this team has a lot of train wreck ability to it. If enough people stay healthy, like if Kirk gets hurt and Mannion's the quarterback, okay, now they're a 4-win team.
Right.
But I think Kirk is sort of like train wreck proof. Kirk is, if you lined up all the quarterbacks and said, all right, who has the highest floor? He has a higher floor than Patrick Mahomes does. Because Mahomes is going to get into a game sometimes and just sling 3 interceptions because he's aggressive and he might go out there and just have a train wreck game.
Sure.
Kirk gives you a block against a 3 and a 4-win season because he's just going to be very steady and consistent. So my biggest worry isn't that, oh my God, like they're going to age out and be a train wreck this year. I think my biggest worry is that their ceiling is still like 9 or 10 wins and they're just going to be stuck in the middle again.
That's best case though.
That's what I'm saying.
That's probably said. Yeah. I feel like not picking a path has repercussions that could be worse. I don't know why. I just feel like it.
Okay.
I feel like you've been given an opportunity, a second chance. You are George Bailey and you have seen your life and you're like, screw that. I'm just going to go back to my old life. It just feels, I don't like tempting the football gods by saying we're going to do a competitive rebuild. You just wait. There's something weird about it to me, but hopefully I'm totally wrong. I'm wrong. I hope they're great.
We'll see. We know that there's nothing weird about Livia because they've helped you lose like 40 pounds. It's crazy.
You know what, Phil? That's a really good point. So when I'm talking about my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers, you know what the Vikings are doing would be like walking in with a bag of chips and dip and being like, I am going to eat like a pig. And Livia, help me lose weight. No, you've got to choose a path. And I believe it was late last summer, I chose a path, and that was the weight loss path, down almost 40 pounds. And now I want you to join me. Get 25% off your program plus 35 meals for free. And of course, you can now choose the virtual or in-person options, which will be customized to you. So you can do this virtually from anywhere in the country. Lose 20, 30 pounds. Summertime comes, everything fits. Livia.com, 855-GO LIVEA. Livia.com to choose the path of weight loss. 25% off the program, 35 meals. 855-GO Livia.
Listen, guys, as we're losing weight and we're feeling better about ourselves, let's go to the next level and feel better about ourselves in the bedroom. All right. Valley Park Medical is dedicated to providing breakthrough ED remedies to men in the greater Minneapolis area. Their approach is medical. All right, you'll meet with a medical provider who will review your medical history, examine everything, and supervise your treatments. And the best part is, well, there's a few great parts. The treatments are surgery-free, drug-free, non-invasive, and discreet. Okay, so you can kind of go under the radar while you fix this important area of your life. ValleyParkMedicalClinic.com. ValleyParkMedicalClinic.com. Are you guys ready to compete head-to-head? Knuckles to knuckles.
I thought Thor might be involved, so I was really, really prepared.
You're lucky he had a time constraint.
Yeah.
It's time for the random Viking of the week here.
All right, let's do it.
Purple Daily. Yeah, I was kind of, we had to be respectful of Thor's time. He's a busy man. He's got other obligations, so
he's big time,
you're
man.
Lucky.
NBC Sports. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Phil.
So, all right.
You're lucky.
Here is the random Viking of the week. So you guys compete head-to-head here. Judd, you have a 17-11 lead on Declan since we started doing this.
It's shrinking.
Yep.
Shrinking.
Declan last week correctly grabbed John David's booty off the board.
Oh, I see what you did there. A man I once saw in Applebee's in Mankato.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Saw's booty.
No. I saw him in Applebee's after a practice one night. I believe he was dining with, if I'm not mistaken, 5th-round pick John Sullivan.
Dude, half-priced apps after 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Star Tribune. Put a lot of tabs on there. All right, go ahead.
Some previous random Vikings of the week have been Tavares Jackson, Leroy Horde, Jeff Dugan, Greg Jennings, and Toby Gerhart. I'm going to give you guys a series of clues. You have 3 incorrect guesses each until you're eliminated, and you can blurt out guesses whenever you want. You can also ask me questions, and I can answer them if I want to.
All right, hold on. I'm going to get my notes.
We'll start with this one.
Yep.
This random Viking of the week originally hails from Jefferson, Ohio. This random Viking of the week played 7 seasons in the National Football League and was part of 4 different NFL organizations.
4 different. All right.
Are you literally writing down verbatim all the clues?
I don't write down where they're from. Unless it's
I do.
extremely notable.
Oh, I do.
Jefferson,
I
Ohio.
take notes on
Ohio
all-
is
I
a
take notes
football
on all
hotbed.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right.
A lot of great football players in Ohio.
No question about it.
All right, this random Viking of the week has played a role in 3 small films, actually. Most notably, The Take. And also in 2008, this random Viking of the week appeared on the sitcom How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, I feel like Declan's got an advantage here.
Have you guys ever seen How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah, and they're Vikings fans.
It's not my favorite show, but I've seen a few ones. And yes,
they
Jason
were Vikings
Segal's character is a humongous Vikings fan in it.
Jason
And from
Segel.
St. Cloud.
Great in Freaks
Is it
and
Jason
Geeks.
Siegel or
Segal,
Jason
Segal.
right?
Sarah
Declan
Marshall.
doesn't care.
I don't care.
Freaks and
Big
Geeks.
goofy
Watch
looking
it.
dude. Yeah, I
Watch
love you,
that
man.
show.
Freaks and Geeks.
Great show.
Yeah.
Love Freaks and Geeks. One of my favorites. 3 small films and How I Met Your Mother.
Yep. All right. This
So-
ran-
Okay, I got a question. Was he playing for the Vikings when he appeared in the show?
No. He was not. He was not. So he was not playing for the Vikings in 2008.
All right.
That might be a pretty big clue, actually. This random Viking of the week played college football in the NAIA.
Couldn't name a single team out of that conference.
And he played for the Amsterdam Admirals of NFL Europe at one point, where he was named to the All NFL Europe team for breaking numerous records at his position.
Oh, Christ.
Or like numerous records
Oh, Christ.
in a league that wasn't around that long. So how many years of NFL Europe were there?
Oh, probably like 6 or 7. I think there were more than we think. But this
Brad Johnson played in the NFL Europe
Yes.
one year?
Yes, he did. So this puts it in. So this puts this guy in the 90s, probably.
This
I don't remember NFL Europe.
is that a
was
question?
around.
Do you want me to answer that question?
Yeah. Yes. Was this
I don't
was
think you
this
had to
guy?
do that, but that's okay.
Was this guy in that? Well, he didn't answer it yet. He can refuse.
I mean, I will say that this player did play in the NFL in the 1990s. That's correct.
Okay.
This random Viking of the week was a 7th-round pick. And the NFL coaches he played for were Dennis Green, Herm Edwards, Jack Del Rio, and Bill Callahan. This random Viking of the week once made a guest appearance with Mackie and Judd.
Ah, crap.
And Rami. We had for a couple years, it was Mackie and Judd with our guy Rami. It was on that iteration of the show that we spoke with this random Viking of the week.
Viking of the week. In the 90s.
This is great. Well, you guys are consternating here.
Son of a.
I'm going to pause to tell the audience about
I'm with Dexon.
Federated Mutual Insurance Company.
I'm gonna mute this.
Been around for
Thank
over
you.
100 years. Federated is all about helping your business maximize its success. They specialize in core industries that they know and understand very well, as opposed to trying to sell as many policies as possible. They love what they do, and they love being part of a great company, and they love helping your great company. Federatedinsurance.com, and remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right? This random Viking of the week scored a touchdown in the 1998 NFC Championship game.
Jake Reed.
In the 1998 championship game?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
In the 1998 championship game. I should easily get the son of a...
No, it's an... We did a... Oh, God. This is such a random Viking of the week.
This random Viking of the week currently hosts a podcast with Terrell Owens.
Matthew Hatchett.
Bang.
Fudge-sickle.
Matthew Hatchett.
Yeah.
60 career catches for 887 yards and 6 touchdowns in the regular season.
Callahan? I hate when you give the coaches sometimes because it actually throws me off.
Yeah, he was a preseason only, but he was with the Raiders for
you
still got paid. He's got paid.
We did.
We consider Sage Rosenfels a member of the Minnesota Vikings. He never actually played in a game with the Minnesota Vikings, though.
I think we did a random season recall in '98, or maybe it was a Minnesota Sports Rewind on that game. And I remember an obscure offensive player catching a touchdown in that and being like, Matthew Hatchett caught a touchdown?
Yeah, man. So the Vikings had 3 deep, and then Matthew Hatchett was the 4th guy behind the 3 deep.
He played for Jack Del Rio where?
Jacksonville.
Okay. I don't remember him with
he
with
played. So his career was Vikings, and then into the Jets for a minute, and then it was Raiders.
I remember the Jets
off-season, preseason.
I don't remember that at all.
And then he was the leading receiver. The one year that he played NFL Europe, he caught like 70 passes for 800 yards in 10 games and was the best receiver in the league. He was a good player.
What team does it say?
The Amsterdam Admirals.
Admirals, yes.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with several of the other great. A
lot of great teams out.
Frankfurters.
Frankfurters.
That's what I was about to say too. Yes, that was a great league.
And Matthew Hatchett was part of when the pandemic hit. We did one of those. We got some people on a Zoom call and said, "Okay, let's get as many random athletes on the Zoom call as possible."
He joined us.
Or it was random Minnesota athletes, and it turned out like Matthew Hatchett popped on, and then Joe Mauer was on. George Niang, random NBA player, no Minnesota ties whatsoever, was.
Yeah, he just got on. Well, people were bored. Yep. Can't blame them. They were bored.
Yep. So, all right, boys. Judd, tell the audience what you're going to be sipping tonight while you just stew over the phrase competitive rebuild.
Competitive rebuilds make me think of just being competitive, and being competitive makes me think of the beer that's the most competitive one that I drink because it's the best. Surly, and in particular Surly Furious, the best IPA around. That's right. This is a beer for those of you watching us right now. This is a beer that's never rebuilding because it's always firing on all cylinders. And when you drink a Surly Furious or any Surly brewing product, you know what you can do? Phil and Dex, what can people do?
Show us your cans.
Show us your cans. Yeah,
exactly right. At Jay Zolgad on Twitter, at Score North. Show us your cans. We always appreciate the fact that you appreciate the best beer.
Yes, indeed. All right, daily Vikings entertainment, therapy, speculation. If you are triggered by us poking holes in competitive rebuild, we're here as therapists as well on the other side of that. So hit us up for the comments episode over the weekend so you can find a quick message tab at the bottom of the Score North app. And please click subscribe on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We'll see you guys tomorrow.